In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the upper control arms with the ball joints on this Hyundai Sonata. They connect the knuckle to the body of the vehicle, and after this job is performed, you do need an alignment done on the vehicle. Let's get started. Use a 21mm socket, remove all 5 lug nuts, and then we can pull the wheel off. Just a little note, if yours has hubcaps, when you take the lug nuts off, the hubcap is going to want to come off, so take that off first, then the wheel. Let's remove the axle nut. The cotter pin locks it in, so we're going to take some cutters, straighten this out, punch it through. Cutters are useful because they can grab onto it like this and pull it straight out. Discard the cotter pin. You don't want to reuse these. Now take a 32mm socket, loosen up the axle nut. If you don't have an impact to do this, what you can do is use a breaker bar and a pry bar right between the lug studs. That's going to prevent the hub from spinning as you loosen it with the breaker bar. Take that off. There's also a lock washer behind here. Take this off as well. Now make sure the axle pushes through the hub. If it's seized, take a punch and a hammer and punch it right in the center. The vibrations are going to break it free. Mine moves, so I'm good to go. To disconnect the upper ball joint from the knuckle, we have to pull this cotter pin out. This is a hook style cotter pin. If you have the one that's peened over, just straighten it out and pull it through. Use a 17mm socket to loosen up this mounting nut. With that loosened up, put it back on a few threads so that when we separate the ball joint from the knuckle, this can be held together until we are ready to fully separate it. Now to break these free, use a hammer, tap the knuckle right here, and that should pop the two apart. There we go. Pry down on the upper control arm, remove the mounting nut, separate these slowly. As the knuckle comes forward, push the axle through to make sure it doesn't separate it. Follow the strut down and you'll see these brackets. Both of these are held on with a 12mm headed bolt. We're going to have to remove these to get some slack in the ABS wire and the brake hose. Start with this one because this bracket is actually bolted onto this, and if you remove this one first, you won't be able to loosen up this bolt. There we go. This little bracket that fell sat right back here and connected these two. We're going to set that aside for later. On the body of the vehicle, you'll see another 12mm bolt holding on the ABS wire with this bracket. Remove this as well, just to create more slack once again. Let's disconnect the sway bar link from the strut fork. Use a 17mm socket and loosen up this mounting nut. Sometimes it is necessary to hold the back with a wrench. As long as you have the original sway bar link, you're going to use a 17mm wrench, stick it right back here, and that's going to hold the stud from spinning. Push this back and just move it out of the way. Let's also unbolt this 12mm bolt holding the brake hose onto the strut fork. Pull this bracket off. This gives us all of the slack that we need to move this around. Under the hood, you'll see the strut tower and the strut, which is held on with 3 14mm mounting nuts. Let's unbolt all 3. To allow the strut to drop down completely, we have to loosen up the mounting nut and the bolt that holds the fork onto the lower control arm. Hold the head of the bolt on the other side with a 19mm wrench and loosen up the mounting nut with a 19mm socket. Both the mounting nut and the bolt head are 19mm in size, so use a wrench and a socket and break this free and remove it. Now you can separate this, pull down, there we go. So now the strut is out of the way of us reaching these bolts. Use a 14mm socket with an extension and a swivel if necessary. Put it right on that bolt, loosen it up. There's one. There's the other bolt. Now pull the control arm out, and there it is. Take the new control arm, slide it in position, and try to line up the bolt holes. Whichever one lines up first, stick the bolt through just so it can be locked in that position. There you go. There's one. And the second. Start these bolts by hand, that way they don't cross thread. And with these bolts started, I'm gonna snug them up with the control arm at ride height. It's important that you tighten it and torque it this way so you don't damage the bushings prematurely. The torque on both of these bolts is 47 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench that fits in here, just do your best to make them nice and snug. Give them about a quarter turn after they bottom out. All right, that's two. Let's put this lower bolt for the strut back through the fork and the control arm. Thread on the mounting nut. However, don't tighten it yet because this bushing needs to be torqued at ride height. At the top, we need to get the strut reseated into the strut tower. If it's not already lined up, just pry it in. Once the bolt holes line up, just pull up on the knuckle, and that should allow you to start in the mounting nuts for the strut. These need to be torqued with the weight of the vehicle pressing up, but for now I do want to tighten them up just so that they're not completely loose. Let's put this brake hose bracket back. Snug that up. Get the sway bar link back in. Torque this to 87 foot-pounds. When it comes to the brake hose and the ABS wire bracket, you're going to want to put this one right over the brake hose bracket. Make sure that little hook hooks in. Let's snug it up into the strut. And now over this bracket goes this one that holds the ABS wire. Resecure the wire on the body of the vehicle. Make sure that's snug. Use a pry bar to pry down on this upper control arm so we can reconnect it with the knuckle. Line everything up. Torque this mounting nut to 33 foot-pounds. That's torqued. However, this being a castle nut with a cotter pin slot, you're going to have to tighten to get to the next slot that lines up so you can put your cotter pin through and never loosen this. My nut is actually right above the slot, so it doesn't even have to line up at this point. It's going to go through no matter what. This is tight, so I'm going to leave it once again for you. If it doesn't line up, keep tightening. Stick the cotter pin through, and we're going to bend it over to lock it in. I have a jack here with a piece of rubber so I don't damage the control arm. I'm going to raise this up a little bit, approximately at ride height. That's going to put this bushing in a spot where it's not going to be under tension if we tighten it as the vehicle is driving down the road. $110 foot-pounds for this bolt. All right, now lower your support. Let's install the washer that goes over the axle and then the axle nut. Thread this on. Use a 32mm socket, bottom it out and snug it. Now let's torque this to 207 foot-pounds. To prevent the hub from spinning, I'm going to use a pry bar, put it right between the lug studs. Once again, 207 foot-pounds. That's it right there. This being a castle nut, you should tighten in order to line up the next slot if your slot doesn't line up. Now the axle does have 2 holes. This one is very close to being lined up, so I definitely can't tighten it any more than this. It is very tight already, so I'm going to slide the cotter pin in, and I know that it's not going to just slide right in, but I'm going to help it along with a hammer, especially now that it's in the way of this lug stud. There we go, and that fits through, and I can lock in the axle nut. And of course, bend the cotter pin over to fully lock it in place. Let's get the wheel back on. If your wheels had hubcaps, you're going to want to put them on now because the lug nuts go over and clamp everything together. Just make sure you line up the cutout for the valve stem with the valve stem, of course, otherwise it won't fit on properly. And now start in all 5 of your lug nuts. We'll bottom them out and torque them to 79 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to seat the wheel properly. Once again, 79 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them. Now that we have the weight of the vehicle on the ground, torque these to 43 foot-pounds. At this point, take it for a road test and don't forget to get in alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.